As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries.
We're back and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for Burn and Return. It's me here tonight. Ryan Ray is with me as well. Matt's working. Ray, probably out of those 168 hours in the week, probably 169 just because, well, that's the way he rolls on both ends. Get me?
Yep. Absolutely.
Ray got a visual there that he couldn't. It took him a couple of seconds to pull that out of his mind. All right. So listen, for those of you that don't know, we spent last week live in person in the beautiful city of Louisville, Kentucky. Had our Dirty Deeds live with our patrons. We had about, I think it was like 55, 60 or so folks there for our live event. We hung out before, we hung out after. Adult beverages were had, many to excess, including several of our patrons that ended up at local fast food establishments like White Castle and others that shall remain nameless. But nobody got in trouble. Nobody got arrested. Ray hit. How many times did you hit up the old Waffle, his house there, Ray, in your trip here?
Oh, I made a record. I mean, twice. Twice. Yeah, and you know what, Ryan?
Yeah.
I'm already having Waffle House withdrawal. I'm already having Waffle House withdrawals. I mean, it's... I
tell you, if people would expect that a 50-year-old lawn care applicator from the state of Hawaii to walk into that place and look like a fish out of water. But I'm telling you what, I've told the story before. I'll stick by it. I was there the first time Ray ever ate at a Waffle House. And let me tell you what, he walked right in there and looked like he not only belonged, but people looked at him like, man, this guy is probably a fucking regular here. And nobody batted an eyelash. And so, he lives on in Waffle House lore. And Ray, we can't wait for when your permanent home is over here in the continental United States. And we'll just have to see.
Well,
we'll have to see.
It was kind of interesting because the first Waffle House we hit, was not long after I touched down in Atlanta. We met up with James, aka LW50, and I pretty much did the same thing because, walked in there, sat down, and nobody looked at me like I was an alien. Okay?
No.
Not at all.
Ray, for the folks at home, because I know this will be a question of people's minds, and hopefully, our probably largest by revenue non-sponsor that would be great to have as a sponsor, Waffle House. Ray, what is your order? If you had to make one order, for your last meal at Waffle House, what would it be?
Damn, I think mine would be just the biscuits and gravy and keep the coffee coming. Yeah.
Well,
and keep the coffee coming. That's all I'd ask. And you see, that's how you see when I do that, they already know. Shit, this guy knows what's going on. I mean,
well, and I think part of it too is it's too much time in Hawaii, Ray, and spent around all of those breakfast places that only serve the blue pate whale penis special, right? That's the problem.
Yeah.
But with that, we're going to dive in this week's headlines. JP, go ahead and roll that headline stuff.
Nothing to to fear here. This is just the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, here our first article here is about a Naperville, Illinois company's robot, quote-unquote, lawnmowers could make the commercial grass cutting easier and better for the environment. Let's see here. A Naperville entrepreneur says his technology can help mow down the amount of harmful emissions churned out in the commercial landscaping industry through the use of robot mowers. Ilya Goyovich is Naperville-based Havenshire Technologies is showing how autonomous commercial-grade electric mowers can provide a safe, clean, and cost-saving alternative for landscaping companies and government entities that maintain large open fields. So Galovich said electric mowers make sense for the environment because they don't pollute the air with contaminants or cause greenhouse gas emissions. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, gas-powered mowers account for 5% of total air pollution in the United States, and one push mower emits as much pollution per hour as 11 cars, and a riding mower as much as 34 cars. So Golovich said, because the price of electric mowers is so steep, most landscapers choose not to adopt. Our goal is to make it inexpensive and easy for professional landscapers and produce a sustainable, eco-friendly solution, he said. He went on to explain that Havenshire Technologies does not produce lawnmowers, but the software that allows mean grain electric lawnmowers made in Ohio to run autonomously in a designated mapped-out area under the supervision of a human who has a kill switch to stop the mower at any time. That sounds comforting. The savings in time and money, he said, when multiple mowers run autonomously at the same time. One person could manually mow where 3 to 4 other machines could work in an area in tandem. This week, Havenshire Technologies partnered with a nonprofit coalition, Chicago Area Clean Cities, or CACC, to demonstrate to landscapers and representatives from park districts at the Forest Preserve District in DuPage County how autonomous electric mowers might work in their organizations. Those attending the demonstration raised questions about how autonomous mowers might deal with objects in the way. Zagalovich said robotic mowers have the ability to maneuver around permanent structures such as buildings, trees, sewer covers when they are added to the mower's internal GPS mapping that provides accurate location down to 1 centimeter. Sensors around the mower, he said, will cause it to stop when people, pets, or other objects not designated on the map come into its path. The mower will not move until the obstruction is out of the way or the person supervising authorizes the mower to continue. It also stops, Zagalovich says, if it gets out of range of the human supervisor. Director of Parks Tim Quigley said he and members of the Naperville Park District attended the demonstration this week to learn about the technology to help if it might fit into the park maintenance plans at some point in the future. As a park district, eco-friendly alternatives are always appearing, Quigley said. He added the district struggled this summer to fill temporary mowing jobs, and autonomous mowers could be a means of getting grass clipped in a timely fashion if summer personnel problems continue. Beyond the environmental and staffing factors, autonomous mowers can run day or night as long as at least one person keeps watch over the process, Zagalovich says. Night operations would benefit golf courses or sports fields that are often occupied from dawn till dusk during the warmer months, said John Walton, chairman of CAC. John Koenig, spokesman for CAC, said the nonprofit coalition, the group focused on promoting clean transportation in Chicago surrounding suburbs. We've been working with businesses and government agencies for over 30 years to help them transition their vehicle fleets to sustainable transportation, Koenig said. So there it is, Ray. Basically they're taking electric zero-turn mowers, and I've seen these mean green machines before. They're not bad. They actually have a pretty decent quality of cut, probably about a 6.5, 7 hour battery life, when it all comes down to it. And they're just upfitting them, with RTK GPS, so they have, precise positioning.
Control mechanisms,
then,
right.
And then the vision sensors to pick up, so, it doesn't mow down the fescue and, say, like a Yorkshire Terrier. So that's always a good thing. But, the thing that gets me here is the whole human supervisor thing. And I agree that, there's always going to be an inherent level of supervision that you have to have. These aren't, completely passive use machines. But, the idea of one of those smaller robotic mowers, like the Husqvarna brand or something similar to that just have those little razor blades, and as soon as you pick them up, they're kind of dead, in the water. This is a commercial grade zero-turn mower, right? How, just put yourself in the shoes of, Honolulu County. I mean, how would this be received out there? Because I know they're hell bent on making these strides and with these initiatives and whatnot, but there is a hell of a safety risk here. Even if you do have a human present, right? It's still up to he or she, and if they've got multiple that are running, I don't know. So where does that land? Where do you think that would land in Honolulu County?
It would not play very well because of how crowded and congested things are. Because, Ryan, what's still fresh in my mind is our burn and return earlier where that child got that metal object shot through him.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
I need to be assured that this robotic mower also knows to stop if, say, there's a piece of rebar on the ground or a concrete form stake, left in the bushes, because when a mower picks that up and propels it, goodness, I mean, that was horrific, Ryan. And okay, my next scenario or thought is say the operator is controlling multiple mowers, right? How does this fella keep track of everything going on around the mowers? Because right now in the municipal areas in Honolulu, the policy is that when bystanders or traffic gets too close, machinery idles down and stops, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't need to have rocks or sticks or metal shrapnel, shot through somebody, because that is not a good day. So,
No,
and
I agree. That's the thing. It's just the care and attention they have to put in, right?
Mm-hmm. And
so
then
I think
my next question is,
go ahead, Ray.
My next question too is, okay, when we do things on batteries,
Mhm.
can somebody please explain to me where the electricity needed to charge all of these batteries come from? Does the electricity fairy show up at the end of the work shift and wave his magic wand and say, batteries charged? And my next question is, okay, if these batteries contain metallic lithium,
Mhm.
you know what it's like trying to put out a metal fire? I'm not talking about a diesel or a gasoline fire.
Ask the guys at the Equip Expo.
Yeah, yeah.
The DeWalt
because,
booth. Sorry, DeWalt.
Right, and as an aside, all the rage are these totally electrically operated cars where all of the power comes from a bank of lithium batteries. One of the aftermath of that hurricane that just went through Florida, causing extensive flooding damage in that part of Florida, is that when these EVs or electric vehicles corrode due to the inundation from salt water, they then short circuit and ignite. I mean, and that is like not a good day for the fire department, whereas the fire department knows what to do when a normal car catches fire. They, break out the foam and extinguishers rated for fuel fires, and they put that thing out now. But for a lithium fire, it's not that simple. I mean, I've heard stories of you need approximately 8,000 gallons of water to put out a Tesla fire. When a Tesla catches fire, you need about 8,000 gallons of water to, put that out. And if you fail to completely put that out, when that vehicle gets winched onto the bed of the tow truck and then gets brought to the junkyard, that battery pack is still hot, and guess what? You can have a fire reignite at the junkyard, and the poor junkyard owner is thinking, "Oh Lord."
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's part of it is what can go wrong, and the only way that you're going to vet these things out is if you put them out in the field, you try them, you figure out what the pain points are, and go from there. But yeah, I like the way that some of the other manufacturers are going after it. Now, those smaller bots are not going to mow through sticks and leaves and stuff like that. So, there's still labor involved. You're not saving 100% of that back, but you have to take a shot here. And yeah, I think these will probably have a higher barrier to entry, based on what I've seen so far. But there's only one way to find out. You gotta shoot some shit out of the side discharge deck, I guess, right, Ray? So here's another one, Ray, out of Chicago. Here's how to handle excess leaves on your lawn this fall. This comes to us from Chicago Tribune and Tim Johnson at the Chicago Botanic Garden. And it starts off with a question. I have a lot of oak trees on my property. I'm already tired of cleaning up leaves. Can you offer any advice to reduce my work this fall? Tim goes on to say, since you have a lot of trees on your property, you should continue mowing about once a week now as the leaves start falling more rapidly. Once every couple of weeks is likely enough in early to mid-October unless your grass is growing quickly. A thick layer of leaves that covers the grass may smother the lawn if it left over winter. A medium to dense layer of leaves can damage any areas of the lawn that were seeded earlier this fall and are just getting established. Carefully rake or blow some of the leaves off the new grass if the ground is too soft to push a mower over. If the mower leaves ruts as you are mowing, that area should not be mowed. Good advice so far, Tim. I use a mulching mower for my lawn, which has several mature oak trees, and throughout the property I do not collect clippings. It saves time and eliminates the need to dispose of grass clippings and most leaves, while returning nutrients back to the lawn. My grass is barely growing now, but the leaf drop is increasing, so I plan to resume mowing about once every 7 to 10 days to avoid having a layer of leaves getting too thick on the lawn, reducing the efficiency of the mulching mower blades. Nice little picture there of Tim's lawn and him chopping the hell out of these leaves. Partially. Probably needs to go back over it again. Change the direction every time you mow, raking leaves, bagging leaves on the occasion. So, Ray, I thought I'd put this in here because we do get this question from time to time, and I know this question is off-cited, right? So, and it's not a huge ordeal that you have to deal with so much out there, but yeah, the mulching of the leaves, no problem at all. I think the people that have to have a full catharsis and see their completely leaf covered lawn perfectly clean and a whole pile of leaves out at the curb to be picked up or in the ditch to be burned if you live out in the country, or bagged up and ready for pickup to go to the compost facility. Any of the above is I don't know. I don't think you need to do that. I think mulching is fine in most cases. And Ray, what do you know about phosphorus in leaves, and do you think there's any detriment to moving those leaves off site, potentially having them end up down a storm drain or something like that? Any worries there? Do you have any
I have huge concerns
about...
actually. I have huge concerns. I mean, and to me, I think in terms of not moving an issue or a problem somewhere else, where if I were God, I'd say all landscape debris stays on site. HOAs and Karens that want that quote unquote clean yard can go fuck themselves.
Here, ladies and gentlemen. The Green Dot Lawn Care Program in fall is brought to you by the fine folks at Moby. So take a look, check them out. Amazon, shipped right to your door on Prime. So yeah, there's a little bit going on there. And if you don't know what we're talking about, the only way to find out some of these inside jokes that we tell, you have to subscribe to Patreon. www.patreon.com/burn-of-return for less than the price of a gallon of gas, or there ain't much. We always say an airport beer, but I'm pretty sure that those airport beers might be at the top tier now of $20 to get you in there. But fantastic concept behind the scenes. Zooms, power hours, movie nights, all this kind of stuff, plus all the access to us and many of our fearless and highly knowledgeable folks that go through our Discord server and answer questions of all kinds, shapes, and colors.
Time's up.
Related
It's
to
over.
lawn care. There you go. Right there.
There
Matt
we
is
go.
still with us. All right, we're going to read one
In
more here
spirit.
real quick. In spirit, that's right. We're going to read one more here on the headlines portion before we jump out of this. So this one's pretty interesting, Ray, and it's got me worried. So summer heat and flash drought has dried up the Mississippi River, choking a crucial shipping corridor. It could devastate America's agricultural exports. Okay. A crisis of low water levels in the Mississippi River could soon reach consumers' wallets, and it's not forecast to end until January. A summer of heat waves baked the central U.S., evaporating water off the Mississippi. In fall, a flash drought struck the Ohio and Missouri river valleys, preventing them from replenishing the larger river. At that point, they'd only contributed small amounts of water from snowmelt to its flow, according to AccuWeather meteorologist Paul Pastelok. By early October, the Mississippi River was breaking low water records. Receding waters have global implications. The Mississippi River Basin produces about 92% of the agricultural exports in the United States, including 60% of U.S. grain exports, which travel down the river to the Gulf to ship across the world. Much of the shipping is stalled in mid-October and then resumed at a crawl. AccuWeather doesn't expect enough rainfall to replenish the river until January at the earliest. Experts say we haven't seen this full impact just yet. While the U.S. inland waterway system saves the country between $7 and $9 billion annually compared to other systems like truck or freight, economic losses incurred from the Mississippi River drought are significant. Through December, AccuWeather estimates $20 billion in losses caused by increased transportation costs, shipping delays, and job losses. Deb Calhoun, Senior Vice President of the Waterways Council, the group that advocates for modern waterway infrastructure, told Insider she expects losses to be far greater than the $20 billion once all data is aggregated, and consumers will feel the impact. The shipping rates are going to go up, and ultimately those get passed on to the consumer, Calhoun said. She added that still transporting via the river is still the most cost-competitive way to move goods. We probably haven't seen quite the impact yet to the consumer market, she said, adding when everyone's concerned about now is getting goods as quickly as possible to those destinations and those buyers around the world who are waiting for their product. So commerce is moving right now, but it's moving inefficiently and it's moving really slow. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has been dredging the river 24/7 to keep it deep enough for barges. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers told Insider they expect to keep up at that pace until the river rises again in January. We haven't had any channel closures, knock on wood, to date, but it gets to be a challenge as the river levels continue to go down, said Lou Del Orco, Chief of Operations for the Corps, St. Louis Division. Supply chain issues are not unique to the drought. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has caused countries in Europe to place embargoes on key goods like grain and energy supplies, meaning international buyers are turning to the U.S. to get those goods, which are primarily transported via the Mississippi River. Coal is in high demand right now, Calhoun said, and the low water levels present a challenge to ship it out of country. This is a temporary blip, and we'll get back on track once Mother Nature cooperates. We've seen high water and low water in the same shipping season sometimes, and the industry will manage those different weather disruptions as they come. John Deason, lead professor of the Environmental and Energy Management program at George Washington University, isn't feeling as optimistic. He said higher food prices at the grocery store are just the first way consumers will start feeling the impact of low water levels. Pastelok said it's unclear how climate change will affect the Mississippi River in the long term, but it's possible that the river's drought cycle accelerates. Instead of every 10 to 15 years, for example, the drought could strike every 5 to 10. We can fix it, but so far we haven't, Deason told Insider, adding, and the reason that we haven't is the pain hasn't gotten sufficiently severe for people to focus on it and elected officials to do something about it. Drought is part of a natural cycle of the Mississippi River Basin. Waters were similarly low in 1988 and 2012. You can't really put it all on climate change, Pastelok told Insider. Still, climate change could be amplifying the heat waves, the drought, diminishing snowpack that brought the river so low. Scientists have to conduct rigorous analysis to attribute any single event to climate change, but on the whole, they're confident that rising global temperatures make extreme heat and drought more severe and more frequent. In that way, the Mississippi shipping slowdown shows how climate change can operate in the background and push stressful conditions over the edge into crisis. This is a global problem we're going to have here for a long time, Deason said. For vulnerable places where the economy is heavily dependent on rainfall, like the Mississippi watershed, it's a real issue. So, Ray, interesting article that sort of portrays the situation that's going on down there, where the volume of shipping is down. I've read somewhere between 75 and 90%. So in today's economy, as the article sort of alludes to, people are looking to us to ship out a lot of stuff, and if we can't get grain downriver from places in the Ohio and the Missouri valleys, that's a major problem. And so
problem.
Let's just focus on leave the climate change piece out for a minute here. Not discounting that, not saying that it's not a cause, right? But underlying is we still have to adapt, right? That's not going to change the what the river is used for and how waterway transport of commodities, grains, everything like that go down through there. It's set up to do that, and we have to manage as best we can. So, my question to you, Ray, is in the short term, how bad does this get? I know you can't tell the weather and can't forecast that, no crystal ball, but are we looking at this prolonging all the way into 23, and now we get major problems?
Could well be because I kind of keep a pulse on the weather myself, and let's just say that I was out working this morning, and I was dying because it is almost November, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
And here in Hawaii, we got treated to like on the ground temperatures of about 90 degrees. Okay, and it's almost November. But I am not freaking out or blaming climate change, because I've come to realize that all of this is very cyclical. Okay, this is very cyclical. And when I say cyclical, I remember 2 decades where it was 90 degrees on Thanksgiving Day. I also remember when it was 90 plus on Christmas Day. So the 10 or so years where temperatures dropped down and it got, cool, wet, and rainy were just the opposite or the bookends of a cycle. And similarly within the United States, a lot of our weather is cyclical. It is not climate. It is literally a cycle that goes from one end and then it works its way back to the other end. And it's been doing it long before the internal combustion engine, long before factories were created, long before technology. It is just nature. I mean, the nature tries to find a balance, and oftentimes nothing's perfect in nature, so it works back and forth between two extremes. But speaking to this whole issue of how to get goods or commodities from one end to the other is disturbingly, we had a railway system in the United States. Am I right?
Yeah.
We had one. And then that got kind of pushed to the side and deprioritized as antiquated and not important. But you know what I know about trains?
What's that?
Trains run rain or shine, irregardless of the level of water in the rivers. They keep on going.
Well, we'll talk about that too. There's something coming up in Burns that may have an impact on that. But I think you're right that there are cycles to the climate. I think that we see those being amplified, right, through changes in climate, man-made changes that are happening. And I don't know that, again, that this is one of those issues that's, yes, you have to address, emissions, you have to do all this other stuff, but you still, again, there's that period in between that stuff has still got to happen, right? And we're not going to change, we're not going to change it so substantively that you just stop, sending 60% of the U.S. grain down the Mississippi River. Like, that's just, that's almost impossible.
Happen.
And can't happen. And to that point of, the climate change folks and when they push that hard, and I agree with climate change. I understand what it is, why it's happening, and how it affects, right, these cycles. But the issue is that if we go all in and say, okay, hey, we're going to just put that on a train and send it on, one, we become way less efficient. Two, costs go up anyway, right? And three, we're not helping the situation or the cause, right, when it comes to those emissions. So I think we've got to figure out some real clear ways on how to keep that Army Corps of Engineers dredging to keep those channels open, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, we got to keep on, have the contingency plan, or what I call plan B and C, in place, because what I do is I avoid catastrophizing, natural events. I avoid doing that. I really don't do that, because for me it's called, hey, this is Mother Nature. She's drunk. I think I need to take Mother Nature and put her in bed and give her coffee tomorrow morning, because Mother Nature's drunk. And that's how and that's how I approach it.
No doubt. All right, well, Ray, it is now time's up, it is over, and it's time for one of our favorite segments, Joe Knows Turf.
Joe Knows Turf. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today, because Joe knows turf.
He most certainly does, ladies and gentlemen. Joe does know turf. We had the distinct privilege and honor of meeting Joe, our biggest and lowest funded sponsor of any of them, for this segment. We got to meet him in Louisville last week. And, he is 1,000% Jersey. He is there to piss people off, pick fights, and sing bad karaoke. And, that's why we brought him. All right? That's why we brought him. So, without further ado, Ray, I was actually sent this clip by several individuals, and they wanted us to take a look at it, review it, and just see what happens. Yeah, this, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people sent this clip. Between the time it was launched and then just here yesterday was the last time I saw it. So, all right, J Pink, let's roll it from that timestamp and let's see what we're dealing here with from Alan Hain with the Lawn Care Nut.
To make a real difference in your lawn. So with cool season lawns, the strategy is exactly the opposite. You're going to actually put your fertilizer down last and your biostimulants down now. When we do that fertilizer, we want something that's high in nitrogen, and I want you to keep in mind that that nitrogen is not for the lawn to use now, it's for the lawn to use next year in the spring. So you can be the
actual fuck.
Okay.
Earliest.
Wow.
So Alan is saying here, he's talking about winterizing, right? Winterizer fertilizers and mixing brown liquids. That's the topic of the video. So we're talking about, a late season application of nitrogen on a cool season turf. And Alan is saying that that plant will not actually use that nitrogen until next year. And I hope, I think, I don't know, we'll let him continue on here, that maybe he's conflating that with it's going to use as much as it can right now. And we know that the later you get in the season, especially about this time, through most of the Midwest, Northeast, that application is pretty inefficient at getting into the plant. But
yes,
there still will be some that gets in the plant, and that particular fertilizer is then consumed and used, right, through photosynthesis to create carbohydrates that end up in the roots, and that's what sustains, the plant through dormancy. And then when it comes out next spring, it's got good healthy root mass, root depth, root vigor, and that's what's pushing things along, right? As the grass is coming out of dormancy, it's actually using those carbohydrate reserves down there in the roots and pushing forward.
So that's the same principle as.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the same principle as me having that half a pizza at 2 a.m. and then be ready to rumble, the next day.
Well, if you want to liken it to that, Ray, let's just go ahead and use an analogy, right? That what I think Alan is saying is that, or at least here, and we'll hear him out, and we'll correct ourselves if you're wrong. But that pizza at 2 a.m. that we had in Spinelli's in Louisville, right, which was delicious, by the way.
Yeah, that was good.
He's saying that if you eat that pizza, that your body is not going to digest, use, and consume those nutrients, right, and carbohydrates and everything else that's in that, right, until the next morning. And what's actually happening, right, is that you're digesting that even in your sleep, and maybe a little bit more inefficiently than you would if you're awake, right? We know that about, metabolism and everything like that. And then, just like in spring, right, with your cool season grass that you fertilize as a winterizer, right, the next morning, or in the grass's case, the next spring, is basically spent shitting it out for a long period of time until you feel better, the grass looks great, and everybody's all hunky-dory and ready to go for the day or the spring. So it's kind of like that. But let's see what else Alan has to say.
Lawn to use now, it's for the lawn to use next year in the spring. So you can be the earliest one out the gates, the earliest one getting started, and the earliest one dominating green in your neighborhood. So you can leave these granules sitting in the bag inside your garage all winter, or you can spread them out on the lawn so they're sitting out there ready to go in the spring. What's the difference, huh? So for you guys with cool season, you actually have a lot more time.
Stop. Yeah, pause, please.
Right. Okay, so he doubled down, and okay, so you can spread those, or you can leave them in the bag all winter. So I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll go look just for the sake of trying to be transparent and right. I believe that's a 30 or 50% slow release. Let's look and see what we've got here. Zoom in on the bag. So polymer coated urea, blah, 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 blah. So this particular bag, 12.48%, so it's about 50%. It's a 50% slow release or slightly over that.
Right.
Slow release products. So I think what he's saying is that a polymer coat is going to sit there and nothing's going to happen with it. But, Ray, could you explain how and I'm just asking, I'm not trying to belabor the point or patronize, right? I'm just asking for the folks at home that want to hear how much Joe knows about turf, and Ray too. How do polymer coatings work in terms of releasing the urea that is inside of them?
Okay, your polymer coated urea fertilizers, what they do is that polymer shell releases the nitrogen or the urea back out of that shell based on two things, moisture and temperatures, right? So if you have sufficient moisture, it will release. It'll constantly release. However, that second factor of the temperature is that the higher your temperatures, the faster the urea pushes or exudes back out of that polymer coating. However, Ryan, would you please enlighten me as to what typically happens in the northern half of the United States from winter to spring?
Well, I mean, in most parts of it, there's certain parts out further west, right, into Iowa and the Great Plains that might be abnormally dry, so that stuff might sit there and not really do much of anything. And it's possible that you could have some positive effects from it the following year. The other side of that, though, the vast majority of the Midwest and Northeast, is that we have ample precipitation, in the form of snow, rain,
Right.
sleet, grapple, whatever that you
Mhm.
want to have during that time frame. And certainly, as you said, temperature doesn't get so important because it's the length of time, right? So as temperature goes up, that product might release over the period of what, Ray? Probably 6, maybe 7, 8 weeks. So when we
Yep.
extend that out and say that, oh, hey, we're talking about, like 16 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, through the wintertime here.
Well,
That is
I'm
a function
thinking,
where it's going to osmotic pressure, it goes across the gradient, higher potential to lower potential. It's going to come across, doesn't matter what temperatures, it's going to continue to come across. And if you give it enough time, it will all come out and it will not be there, right? So I
Yeah.
don't know that that's a good piece of advice other than if you're trying to,
well,
move product.
well, my next question is that
Mhm.
say we're lucky and due to the low temperatures, most of that polymer coated urea is still intact for spring snow melt.
Yep.
Because I'm thinking about something like, I know nitrogen is very good for grass. I also know that excessive nitrate and nitrogen are not good for waterways and bodies of water. I'm thinking about that because what happens when you dump a lot of nitrogen or wash a lot of nitrogen into a waterway or a body of water? What happens, Ryan? I'll tell you.
Well, I'll tell you too. Ask the folks in Florida and ask them why
Mhm.
they're not allowed to use this, why they're not allowed to have nitrogen applications in the wintertime. It's not too far off from what we deal with up here, right? The grass
Yeah.
types are different and all that, but the principle and the premise is still the same. So let's watch a little bit more here and see what's going on.
Time right now to kind of plan things out. What you basically want to do is you want to wait until the very last mow of the season. Now you'll know when this is. You'll be out, you'll have cleaned up all your leaves, there'll be a few left, maybe a little bit of cleanup sticks to pull out of the yard, and you'll look and you'll notice, hey, it's kind of grown a little bit, not much, but I'm going to give it one last mow to kind of clean things up. When you do that mow, and you know which one it is, right after, that's when you throw down your winterizer. And the reason you do that is, again, we don't want this for this year. We want this to sit in the lawn, get covered by snow, and then next spring, whew, snow melts, washes it right in,
dear.
shoots the lawn right out the gates. Now, if the perfect world exists, you'll throw this down, get snow the
I'm
next
out.
day, and not see.
Stop.
Okay. So here's something, and we've talked before, Ray, about the 4 R's, right?
Yes.
Right place, right time, right rate, right product. Okay. So what we're violating here, right, is right place, right time. And the reason I say that is, Ray, is there ever a situation, a scenario at any given time, cool season, warm season, I don't care what, continent you're on, is there any reason that you would apply fertilizer or have fertilizer sitting out on saturated ground?
Never. I mean, never.
Time's up. It's over.
Never. Yep.
That's right,
Never.
Alan. It is.
Because here's the thing: is that these granules of polycoat urea. I know what they do under flood conditions, Ryan. They float. They move. They float up and wash down the drains like a turd. Okay.
So there's a lot more bad. There's a lot more bad than good, is what you're saying, right? But there may be some good, and I don't disagree that you can make a case that in certain situations, and I'd love to back this up with some type of applied research, or and I'm not saying you got to do a full 3-year graduate student study. Go ahead.
Right. However, if I was going to put grass to bed for the winter, and say I'm working in that time frame between September through October, I'd be feeding the grass with immediately available nitrogen like non-coated urea or ammonium sulfate in gradual doses up until about 2 weeks before actual dormancy. And do you know why I would do that, Ryan?
What's that?
because then I know that I'd be feeding that grass, and the grass would be utilizing it and converting it to stored energy for, usage next year. Because, if we want to go back to the pizza analogy, that would be like me saying, okay, I'm going to hang on to that pizza, right? And I'm not going to eat it right now. Instead, I'm going to leave it sit for several days and then come back to it. No bueno, right?
Yeah.
Anything's can happen. Like the silverfish and the roaches can come. I mean, and eat it for me, among other things. It's just not a good scene, right? So,
Hey, we've all had room temperature Domino's or Little Caesars 2 days after the fact, and it ain't no good for anybody. It's a sad state of affairs, but it is what it is.
Live and
Can we
learn.
watch just the rest of that clip real quick and finish out. I just wanted to make sure we give fair opportunity and fair time to this here.
The lawn again until March or April. However, these are living things. We're at the mercy of nature and all of that, so it's probably not going to happen that way, and that's where hoping for the best comes in. Control your controllables, look at the data, understand what your weather patterns are holding, when historically you get snow, that type of stuff. Use your intuition from living in the area that you've lived in for a long time and make your best guess at when that latest point to get this down is, and from there, hope for the best. I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut. Thank you so much for watching. Lots of resources down in the description below. And I'll see you.
All right. Alan, thank you. With that being said, the last thing I want to touch on here, Ray, is the timing, and we've hit this point several times over the years and everything like that about that late timing and the fact that the research, the data, right, the things that Alan's told us to look at and understand has shown us that the efficiency of those November applications, which we're going to be in November here in a couple of days. We're recording this on Sunday, October 30th, that here in the Midwest, that those applications are taking up about 12 or so % of what they would have if you made an equal rate application 2 months prior in mid to late September. So 12%, Ray. Not a lot of bang for your buck. And again, they'll come back and say, oh, we got 50% solar release in there. I don't know how much is going to be there, and even if it is, what did you lose? Where did it go? If all of it isn't there, where did it go? And the answer is nowhere good. So time's up. It's over. Go ahead, Ray.
Next.
Next.
I mean,
Yeah, it's troubling to hear that kind of stuff from somebody with a big platform. And
this is just disturbing because, Ryan, he's basically telling people to do the very thing that will cause their regulatory agency in their state or municipality to say, these lawn enthusiasts and lawn care operators are just screwing up the environment, and they give zero fucks, and we need to then correct this. And when a state or a municipality takes corrective action, you know what their priority is? Yeah, they seek to shut down what they perceive to be the source of pollution, and they give zero fucks about whether that corrective measure will have an adverse impact on economy, aesthetics, etc. They're just going to say no more. They're going to say no.
And that's unfortunate, is that it's painted with a broad brush, but this is the way. You're right. That's absolutely the way that it. It doesn't take too many instances for something to happen. In a very small industry for there to be a large ripple effect, and we're not overstating that because we've seen it. We live in this industry; it's how we make our living and all that kind of stuff. So, for anybody that's going to watch this and say, "Oh, you're just ripping on Al," what? That's not the point. The point is that
it's nothing personal against Alan.
Good teaching opportunity. There's some things he said there that we can use as teaching points, and so hopefully he watches it and he can make some more content off of the good and research-backed information that we just provided there. So with that, Ray, it's time time to hear. Let's see here. Sheila scream. It's time for our burns. Now, if you don't know, and we sort of alluded to it, but I didn't state it outright, Ray was able to leave the island of Oahu, where he lives, and come over here to the continental United States, spend a week with us last week. It was a great time, an awesome time, but the only reason that he was able to do that was by concocting a mix that he calls the STFU mix, and you can Google that on Urban Dictionary to find out what that stands for. But it is a concoction of what, Ray?
I usually put in the following: Cutlass, Tenex, Anu, Exteris, and imidacloprid. You know what I call that?
So it's,
actually,
what's that?
I call that STFU. And for Christ's sake, don't get the sniffles while I'm gone.
There you go. So it's a CYA type of thing, and I'm curious, Ray. If you had to pick a few things to leave Sheila for a week, what would be in your STFU mix for Sheila? Maybe a nice bottle of wine, a carefully curated playlist on Spotify with all of her favorite tracks, maybe something sent to her from Amazon Prime, from the folks at Moby.
Or you know what? I would actually leave her with the 6 foot tall, 225-pound surfer.
There you go. Take care of this for me, guy, while I'm gone. All right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the likelihood that she has to have emergency abdominal surgery to evacuate something out of her is highly unlikely in that scenario, right? He'll do all the evacuating himself and go on from there. So, all right, let's dive in here to the burns. And if you don't know what we're talking about, again, we're going back to some wild talk earlier, and I encourage you to take a look at that. All right, so Ray, our first burn. This is what I was talking about with the situation with the trains and all that, railroads. Why the U.S. has a diesel shortage. All right. Last week, the Energy Information Administration reported that distillate inventories were at their lowest level since 2008. Primary distillates are diesel, jet fuel, and heating oil. However, in 2008, distillate levels were low coming out of spring. Currently, they are going low into fall. That's a worse situation than 2008. Distillate demand generally spikes in the spring when farmers are planting crops, and in fall, when they are harvesting those crops, people start buying fuel oil for winter. Thus, a low distillate inventory in late 2008 isn't quite as serious as a low inventory in October of 2022. In fact, distillate inventories haven't been this low in October since the EIA began reporting data in 1982. These low distillate inventories are why diesel prices are above $5 a gallon nationwide, and even though the nationwide average price for gasoline has dropped below $4 a gallon. Why is there a diesel shortage this year? There are 4 factors, but 2 of those are in play every year. As mentioned above, distillate demand spikes at this time of year, but it does that every year. This is also the time of year that refineries are doing maintenance. They tend to do that in the spring and fall, which is when the demand is lower, the weather is decent. So refinery capacity drops at this time of the year. Third, U.S. refinery capacity has fallen in the past several years as several unprofitable refineries were closed. So that's a new factor that has appeared in the past couple of years. But the primary reason is the cutoff of Russian imports. Prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. was importing nearly 700,000 barrels per day of petroleum and petroleum products. Most of these imports were finished products and refinery inputs that boosted distillate supplies in the United States. The loss of those Russian imports has caused problems for refineries as they struggle to fill holes in their product slates. Refineries do have a small amount of flexibility in shifting gasoline production to diesel production, but it's a relatively small amount. The example given here is approximately 5% in a refinery I once worked in. So this is the author talking. That also means that if refiners do shift production, it potentially creates shortage in the gasoline market. Some relief is on the way as diesel imports are on the way from Europe to the East Coast, but the distillate market won't likely return to normal before next summer at the earliest. So Ray, there you have it. What are we in for here? Because again, people think about those three three different products, right? Diesel, heating oil, and jet fuel, sort of as different commodities, but they all do come from those petroleum distillates. So
it comes from a similar fraction, and so I just foresee continued high prices. And fun fact: on my way out this morning, I had to fill up the service truck, right? And to be honest with you, I swiped my card and the pump shut off at $175. And so for $175, I barely got 29 gallons of diesel.
Jeez.
Yeah. I know, Ryan. But then I also know something too is that when this fellow was talking about low refining capacity, the reason why is because, at least in the United States, the preferential product has been gasoline, not diesel. And for the longest time, actually, our refineries have been shipping their surplus diesel fuel production to Europe, because in Europe, demand for diesel for motor vehicles used to be higher than that for gasoline in the recent past. But now that has shifted entirely, because I think in Europe, at least, the demand will be for lithium.
Yeah, well, we know why there, right? So it such a weird matrix right now of how energy demand, production, everything is shifting, right? We talked, several weeks ago about, natural gas in Central America, northern, the northern part of South America, Venezuela on over to Colombia, and just how that is ripe for the picking, and sort of, that's where some of the investments are being made because of some of the situations in Europe. And now here we are, right? As a country in need of imports for diesel production. And I don't know, I think hopefully it's not a cold winter. I know that people were there was some talk about well, there's only a 25-day supply left. That's assuming that everything shuts down, right? All production ceases, right? And nothing gets produced for the next 25 days. We would have 25 days on hand. And I think that number is as low as it's been, I think, since that 2008 time frame back in the spring of that year. And so that's not so much worrisome, Ray. It's more about, just how Europe has been feeling the crunch, right? The crush of energy prices for them for electric and heat related to natural gas, and certainly fertilizer production as a byproduct of that, industrial use, everything of that nature and production. But are we about to see those same headwinds, right, come here in terms of diesel and stay for a while, just as they have in Europe? So it'll be interesting to watch. It's certainly not something that is a return. And, I'm sure when Sheila goes to fill up her big-ass truck, she's not going to like it very much either. So,
no.
Got to get we have to get her a 1-ton dually electric vehicle, Ray. We'll work on that. Yeah. All right.
For sure.
Based on our previous conversation, lawns a big contributor to climate change, says a study. There's a call for a radical and fundamental rethink of parks in the grassy quarter-acre section many Kiwis aspire to. This comes to us from New Zealand. Auckland University of Technology professor Len Gilman says it's because of climate change. And most people don't really understand how bad it's going to get, he said. He's helped write a new research paper titled Calling Time on the Imperial Lawn. Its findings show that although lawns are often thought to capture carbon from the atmosphere, that's not the case. Once mowing, fertilizing, and watering are taken into account, it says mown grass in almost every case is putting out carbon. Over 20 years, it could be as much as 43.9 metric tons of carbon equivalent per hectare, which is about 2.5 acres, but other estimates put it much higher. Paper calls for a change both at home and on public land. Digging up any unused lawn, placing it underneath trees instead is the answer. We need to be planting, and we've got to cut emissions. That's critical. Mown grass is ubiquitous and everywhere, he said. For example, there's about 16 million hectares of it in the U.S. alone, which is the size of England and Belgium combined. Even if we planted just a third of the grass in cities around the world, we can absorb 6 million tons of carbon dioxide over the next 2 decades, so it's quite a lot. He said that while lawns are desirable for many, often much of it goes unused. The side of roads, the bits of park that are sort of tucked away in the corner somewhere that nobody ever uses, there's lots of grass there that actually could be planted up, and we need to be planting.
My
I
goodness.
think what he's saying is he's using planting as a different verb, I think, in talks about using native plantings, I think, here. So this paper says it's imperative for governing bodies to put policies and incentives in place. Auckland Council said it can't order people what to do in their backyards, but it can encourage them. Facility managers for parks and community facilities, Carl Beaufort, said the council is 100% into the idea of swapping lawns for trees. So there you go. They want to be planting trees. We think it's a really great thing to explore at your home. There's a lot of history around how lawns came to be, and the social ranking based on lawns all came from the UK heritage. And I think it's time we start to look at the change, look towards New Zealand's nature and what we actually do here in New Zealand and what we want our backyards to look like. He spoke with One News from the council low mow trial patch. Grass on reserve land is taken out of the regular mowing schedule and instead cut twice a year. He said the results of this can be used to inform politicians about what mowing equipment works best for council land and how the council can be cutting its carbon footprint. And if happy with that, it's socially acceptable, we think that's a win. Hal Davies, Auckland Council's senior advisor for urban forest. Our council's got urban forest strategy looking to try to increase our overall canopy from the current 18% to 30%, said Davies. And we really need to rely on landowners and the council to be involved in that overall aspirational goal. So retaining trees and planting more trees on private property is as important as council's role of planting trees on council land. And planting the seed for change, Professor Len Gilman said that the councils everywhere need to do more. We need to take a much bigger lead, and this is a local government throughout the world. Incentives that get people thinking about it and motivate them to do it. What the study says, sort of a little summary here at the end about what the study says. The rate of carbon emissions from mowing depends on the size and type of the mower, how often it's used. But 1.1 to 5.5 million tons of carbon could be emitted in the U.S. alone from mowing just every year. Adding fertilizer emissions causes emissions from nitrous oxide. Watering causes emissions due to energy needed to capture, pump, and move water. There will be a fundamental shift in what people perceive as desirable and usable in parks, but the climate crisis is such a magnitude that all possible options must be considered. Woo! All right. Ray, a lot to unpack there.
Wow. You know what? I'm going to stop him right there and say, Cowboy over there is talking out of his ass, because it's obvious that this fella has never looked into what it takes to maintain trees from a populated area. Because, Ryan, what kind of machinery is needed to maintain trees in a congested suburban or urban area? Because I'm counting tree chippers and big trucks, a lot of big trucks.
Leaf back, suckers.
Can you tell
where's
me?
Where's all that leaf debris go? We were just talking about leaves and mulching and
where's
everything like that.
Where's all that trash going? I mean, because for me, if I wanted to control my carbon footprint, you know what the first form of vegetation that would be gone would be?
No.
Trees. The trees would go first. Okay, that's the first thing to go, because
Go ahead.
And the reason why is because city and county of Honolulu had, in their need to be avant-garde, first, whatever, is that has been their policy all along, is put trees all the fuck over the place, whether it's practical or feasible or not. And so you have this tremendous maintenance overhead. And I still want to know, you talked about diesel shortages. Last I heard or seen is that I don't have, or the city and county of Honolulu, for example, doesn't have a diesel ferry that keeps the large trucks and the tree chippers fueled. Okay? And likewise, they don't have an energy ferry to keep the leaf blowers fueled. They don't have one to keep the vehicles needed to haul all of that crap, off the roads and into a designated disposal facility. I mean, nothing occurs in a vacuum, right, Ryan? There's inputs, outputs, causes, and effects and consequences. And and I think people like him, they have actually this idea that grass is bad no matter what. And by the way, Ryan, do you know why I'm a big advocate for plant growth regulators on turf grass?
Please tell me.
It is because plant growth regulators also control and reduce the carbon footprint of maintaining that turf area.
It's true. I mean, there's no doubt about that, by slowing that down, right, that we can reduce water consumption, we can reduce fertilizer inputs, right, reduce mowing, like all those things, right, become real. And that's not just whether you believe in it or not, right? That's
the science. That's the science, Ryan.
That's the science. And Ray, I think there's a tremendous marketing opportunity here for you because, if we led with the fact that you have an STFU mix, I think, for homeboy here, Professor Gilman, he would be very, very interested to hear more about your ball gag mix, right? Because if we're going to mow twice a year, we don't want the grass to just shut up and not get the sniffles, right? We want to turn it into the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, right? And whenever it talks, 3 months after it's been mowed, it's what's that grass? I can't hear you because you have a ball gag in your mouth. You have the ball gag mix on.
Yeah, and fun fact, did you know that New Zealand has registered paclobutrazol as a usable PGR on ornamentals and turf in that country?
Really?
Yeah. So they have the tools potentially to do this, because I can imagine applying a pretty hefty rate of paclobutrazol to, for example, a park or a lawn area to cut that mowing down from one time a week down to maybe only once a month. Because I know that within the industry, at least, there's this tradition or dogma about weekly mowing. Okay? And that is something where, you remember how, Ryan, I talked about the optics of even spray applications, right? Where I don't want to be seen as the guy that is walking around a lawn with a sprayer every month or every 2 weeks. Whereas for me, by, better programming, I cut that down to like a few times a year. But similarly with mowing, I think the optics of people seeing, what? They're mowing that park again? Or what? My neighbor is mowing again and he just mowed last week? The optics aren't good. Whereas, what would happen if that mowing were cut down to maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month even? Wouldn't that change things?
It would. I mean, because, especially in a place like New Zealand, where I think in most locations they're probably mowing 10, 11 months out of the year. They don't really have a true winter, right? So,
nope.
So if you're talking about going from 4 down to 2, 50% reduction, right? Like, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And so I think there's a lot in this article that, I think assumes how lawns are maintained and just blankets that across 16 million acres, right? And we know for a fact, right, that lawns come in all sizes, shapes, colors, right? Management levels, expectations, inputs, outputs, everything like that. And it would be just an absolute debauchery-filled exercise to sit there and say, from a scientific point of view, right, that, well, hey, if we extrapolate this out, the numbers, end up here. I don't buy that, right? And I think that's sort of where, that's where we could probably get even better, right? Is sort of refining. Again, we've talked about this before, but sort of that outcome-based approach is refining better of what this stuff actually looks like, right? What do we actually end up with, and sort of what's a good, better, best approach, right, in terms of outputs, but also too managing those inputs. And I think this is where some of this stuff of domination and some of the Facebook stuff, the clown world lawn care stuff, just chaps my. We're in Burns, so I can talk about it, but it chaps my fucking ass. It really does, because you know why? Go ahead. You go ahead, and then I'm gonna chat my ass a little more before I say it.
Okay, because Ryan, speaking to your point, that stuff grinds my gears too. Where I see people bragging about throwing down more and more shit on their lawn and mowing every week, or more often than that. I mean, that kind of shit just grinds my gears. Where I know for myself that there's another way to do it that minimizes or lessens inputs, yet the turf grass is still commercially acceptable. Because, Ryan, do you see what's on my background?
Mm-hmm.
What if I told you that only gets mowed twice a month?
I believe it. From you?
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah. And it is not brown. It is not horrible. I mean, every time this client of mine, he tells me, Ray, I drive down the street and my lawn is the greenest one on the street. And it's not because I'm doing more and more and more to that lawn. No, it's called intelligent use of PGRs, intelligent, management of nutrients and water, and judicious mowing. Okay? That's what it is. It's like when I see people doing the opposite of what's called minimization and trying to do more, it's like, no. In the case of lawn care, less is more. And when I think these activists see the lawn care clown world, they have a picture in their mind that, oh, for Christ's sake, these people, they're just too much. They're out there spraying everything. They have their mower running 24 hours a day. No, these people just give zero damns, and they're a danger to, the longevity of this planet. Shut them down. Right, Ryan?
There's no question. No question that perception is reality in this case, right? And, I don't know. I feel like in some cases that tangent of marketing is just like a game of musical chairs, that those people are going to go as hard and as fast and as just wanton disregard for whatever might be right or wrong, right? Until the music stops, and then, hey, whatever, we'll figure it out, right? Maybe there's a chair, maybe there's not. But the idea that we've got to continually put stuff down, we've got to do all, I dominated and I put, 7 pounds of fertilizer, 7 pounds of nitrogen on my lawn. It's like, well, the point is to guide yourself there, like in the most, I wouldn't say, efficient. And people look at efficiency and might say, oh, well, you mean like restrained? No, I don't. I mean, by doing all the right things. Well, I don't have time. Well, then here's some things you can do, right? And we've talked about that before. Oh, hey, I have all the time in the world. I work from home. I can do this. I can do that. Okay, well, here's how I would do it if you had that level of input of time, right? Because that's a big function of it. But I don't know. That's the part that continually it's hard for me to look at because we know we can do better. In the information's
it's tough for
out
me to
there.
look at. And one more thing. You know what my question is for all of these people that are basically pushing their turf areas like it's a hayfield to be harvested? Where the heck do those grass clippings go? You know, where the heck do all this? Because you know what, I'm gonna even talk a little bit more in that the convention in my area is that for 100% of all grass clippings to get picked up after mowing or trimming. Guess how much grass clippings I have to pick up or bag?
Probably not very much.
None.
There you go.
And do you know why I don't have that problem or that added environmental impact, Ryan? Because you know
Probably
that
because you've matched inputs to outputs. That's the big picture thing. What I would say.
Because the magical energy fairy does not stock or tender that vehicle that picks up the hundreds of pounds of yard waste that your average home in Hawaii generates. Okay?
There you go.
And guess what? Those trucks all run on diesel. Okay? They run on diesel. And so there's no diesel ferry to keep those trucks filled. So I got to ask. I'm sure a lot of municipalities are in that same situation. So these jackasses that brag about generating mountains of grass clippings every week, knock that shit off, please.
Now I'm going to throw out one more hypothetical that Professor Gilman probably didn't consider in his study, and we'll end Burns on this because there's some really good returns I want to make sure we have time to get to, and that is this. What if I asked Professor Gilman, hey, all right, I still need to fertilize, and he says, all right, I'll give in there. I'll meet you in the middle on the fertilizer stuff, okay? And I'll say, yeah, Shine, we'll mow twice a year, whatever the hell you want to do, you want to turn this, sexless marriage into a sexless lawn? Yeah, sure, we'll do it. That's fine. So I would ask him, hey, what do you say for the fertilizer? I run down to my local, hardware store, my big box, home improvement store or something like that. Pick myself up a bag of that. Maybe I'll go to the feed mill, depending on where I live. Whatever. Hop in my truck, my car, personal conveyance, and I go over there and I get it and I come back. Maybe I burn an hour, gallon of gas, something like that. Or I could order it from the comfort of my own home, and I could have it put in a 45-pound box, and I could have it shipped on a plane, a truck, something to a terminal that then puts it on another truck, and then make some poor asshole schlep it up my driveway, right? And oh, by the way, before he came there, he knew he had that 45-pound fucking package to put in there, so he went and took an extra long shit, left the Amazon van idling out there, right? Or the UPS truck or whoever delivers this stuff, right? Took a shit, ate a Twinkie, maybe sucked down a Ho-Ho 2 in a Red Bull, and then decided, oh, fuck, I'm going to go pick up this heavy box and walk it up this poor fat bastard's driveway so he can have it. And thanks so much for ordering this, Ryan. If you consider that, what do you think is going to have the bigger environmental impact, and which one's going to have more, impact on climate change? So, hey, any way you slice it, there's ways to get better, but dominating in any respect is certainly not one of those, unless you're Sheila and you make Ray shut the fuck up. All right, let's jump over here to returns.
La 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 la. La 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 la.
I'm back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our returns, and we've got a couple of really good ones here. Kind of a point counterpoint here. dive into our first one here, and this is from Don Davis. Don is an extension agent for Virginia Polytechnic Institute, which is also known as Virginia Tech, as we colloquially know that. And Don is saying here in his article, lawns provide a long list of valuable ecosystem services. Don says lawns are said to be ecologically dead zones and bad for the environment. In reality, they provide a long list of valuable ecosystem services. They look good and complement your flower beds, shrubbery, and trees. Lawns create a pleasant environment with an expanse of attractive, uniform growth. Blades of grass can absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen in the air just like all other green plants. The roots of turfgrass plants are fibrous and extensive enough to protect the soil from getting carried away by wind and rainfall. Lawns filter water as it runs across the land, trapping and neutralizing pollutants before they can contaminate groundwater and surface water. Runoff from lawns can carry improperly applied pesticides and fertilizers into streams, rivers, lakes, and bays, but farms are the main source of these chemicals. Dust and mud are no concern if your home is surrounded by a lawn. Neither are wildfires. A yard with grass will be 10 decibels quieter with compared to one with bare dirt, and the noise you'll hear will be softer and less irritating. There will be less glare, air pollution, and heat that builds up. Lawns present a low-cost way to cover ground around your home. A well-maintained lawn adds curb appeal and property values. Employees and customers appreciate a nice lawn on commercial properties. It conveys a favorable impression and tells the public someone cares about the looks of your business. Lawns are essential for many leisure activities which improve mental and physical health. They provide a safe and resilient surface for croquet, badminton, and other sports. Everyone likes the smell of a freshly mowed lawn. This is because mowing causes the grass blades to release carbon compounds called green leaf volatiles that are similar to those released by fruits and vegetables. Walking on a lawn with bare feet feels good to people. Dogs love grass and rolling on it, sleeping on it, and eating it. Rodents and snakes avoid the lawn that are mowed regularly. They do not want to be out in the open and exposed to predators. Small mammals such as chipmunks, moles, voles, shrews live in the lawn. Deers graze on lawns, and skunks come in at night to dig up insects such as grubs. Many kinds of birds feed in the lawn. These include bluebird, grackle, starling, wild turkey, dove, hawk, robin, and Canada goose. Yellow jackets nest in the lawn, while harmless scalloped wasps will fly over them to lay eggs in the bodies of grubs. Honeybees find essential nectar and pollen in the white flowers of Dutch clover. Predators such as ladybugs and dragonflies crawl in the lawn and fly over to find food. Among the permanent residents of the lawn are ants, solitary bees, 17-year cicadas, and various beetles, including Japanese green beetles and rhinoceros beetles. Earthworm tunnels through the lawn as they feed, and in the process enrich it with their castings. Fungi and bacteria also inhabit the lawn, and they contribute essential ecosystem services such as recycling organic material and breaking down toxins. So Don does a nice job here in a very, very approachable way of just kind of talking a little bit about, some of the benefits of turfgrass. And, people will say, well, that doesn't deal with this or doesn't deal with that. Those are the benefits. And, it's not that somebody's made those up. It's, some of that is anecdotal evidence, like people like walking on, grass with their bare feet. Some people might not, but the majority of people, if you're a warm-blooded American, by God, you better love walking on the grass with bare feet. Just not after Ray has gone out there with a trident and doused it with 5 gallons per thousand of, your favorite mixologist blend of chemicals. That's all. But
please
Ray,
don't do it then.
But Ray, here's the thing: is do you think if I asked the average person on the street to name me just two benefits of turf, do you think they could?
Yes.
You think so?
Your average person on the street could, unless they are the part of the anti-turfgrass and anti-civilization agenda. In fact, you know what? I have an evil idea.
Oh gosh.
This guy and Professor Gilman really need to get together. I'll sit these two gents down with a bottle of rabbit hole, and I'll say, you know what? You two guys need to talk and work this out, because Professor Gilman is just basically saying we want to eradicate all managed and maintained turfgrass. Get rid of it all. Whereas this professor here, he, touched on all the points of why turf grass is good, and I can tell you too that, you know what, Ryan, in spite of me using various PGRs and fungicides and insecticides on the turf grass, I still have armyworms coming around. I still have bees coming around. I still have birds coming around, and yep, I even have earthworms. And much to my chagrin sometimes, but then I still got earthworms. So I am going to fight anybody that says that a maintained turfgrass area is biologically dead. I can also speak to this other point about how grass, filters out pollutants and, things that you don't want in waterways, because I know within my municipality, there's literally a mandate to have grass or mowed vegetation covering all dirt that leads to waterways. There is a mandate, and the reason for that mandate is they don't want things like artificial turf or even gravel, because those materials do not do a good job of filtering out contaminants.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's none of that, right? You have there is no benefit in terms of acting as a filter, right? Or the fact that from an erosion control standpoint, grass is far, far superior to that, right? So,
yes,
I wish that these facts are more known, and we almost need to do I think there's been several I've seen over the years that have done this in sort of an infographic type format. It would be most beneficial to have something like that people can look at and see and touch and be approachable. I think that's the other thing. Sometimes we get a little amped up and we get a little too sciencey sometimes with this stuff. Yeah. So, yep, yeah, it's not ideal, but anyway. So our let's see here, last turn. I really wanted Matt to be here for this, and I hope that he had a chance to read this. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but we'll do it here on this show because it's a great story. And this one's coming to us here from the beautiful city of Knoxville, Tennessee, home to Matt's UT Vols, which a couple weeks ago beat Alabama on their home field at Neyland Stadium. So this story is a little bit about how after the game, the fans tore the absolute shit out of it. They had a whole bunch of people on the field, tore down the goalpost, and this writer had the great idea to interview the grounds crew and talk a little bit about putting it all back together because they had a home game just 7 days later. So amid the jubilation, exuberance, and general madness after Tennessee beat Alabama for the first time in 16 years last Saturday, one man stood in Neyland Stadium waiting for what loomed for him in the aftermath. Darren Sable grew up in Alabama. He knew what a life-changing event it was for Vols fans to see their team take down the Tide. So as he stood watching tens of thousands of Tennessee fans storm the field for the first time since 1998, he wasn't surprised. That's a storied program that has won a lot of games the last 12 years. We haven't, Siebold said. Everybody thinks the big rivalry is Tennessee-Florida, but it's really not. It's Tennessee and Alabama. I'm from there, and I know. This was a big win. I mean, the first time in 16 years, you knew it was coming right here. You can't stop it. You just have to let it go. Siebold understood the hysteria, but that doesn't mean he had to like it. Because as the director of sports surface management for the Vols, this was his work under siege. He's overseen all the playing surfaces for Tennessee athletics and has spent 12 years in Knoxville, but this once-in-a-quarter-century event. The goalpost, gone, dunked in the Tennessee River. The school was fined $100,000 by the SEC for fans entering the field, which was littered with garbage, a plot of turf meant for 22 players instead mashed by thousands of delirious fans. Tennessee put out a lighthearted plea for crowdfunding for replacement of the goalpost immediately after the game, but Siebold said they already had it under control thanks to years of watching and talking to other guys in his position of what to expect on Saturday. Turf managers live a behind-the-scenes life, and it's a close-knit fraternity in the business. I probably heard from 90% of the SEC guys, Siebold said. The goalpost coming down, you kind of expect it, so we already had a set ready to go. We've been bad for so long that we watched a lot of goalposts come down in 12 years that I've been here from afar. You just kind of learn from everybody, like, all right, man, this is what you're in for. He said he was flooded with congratulatory texts from around the country. Then, obviously, some were saying, like, dang, man, nobody likes to see grass torn up anywhere, Siebold said. Most of these guys have been through it. Celebration scenes dominated social media, but one particular got the attention of his colleagues. There was a woman ripping up a huge chunk of turf from the Vols trademark checkerboard end zone at Neyland Stadium. It inspired a fellow turf manager from Oklahoma to consider his own reaction. This is Jason Ferris at the University of Oklahoma. It says, if this happens to me, I'll need bail money. Ray would probably be right there with you, Jason.
Jesse Bousquet, help.
There you go. Jesse Bousquet is our turf attorney. So how did Siebold pull off a flawless field for a home game in the area next week with UT Martin with a noon kickoff after it was just trashed the week prior? You're going from the highs of beating Alabama that you hadn't done in 16 years to playing an FCS. But our fan base, buddy, they don't care if we're playing a high school. Siebold and his staff did it with a whole shed of lawn implements. We're talking aerators, fertilizers, mowers, blowers, and shop vacs to vacuum up grass. A lot of vacuuming grass, because when Tennessee beats Alabama, there's a unique challenge after the crowd spills onto the field. First, or when you first see all the cigars, you're like, what is all that? They got dropped, but when they got shredded, then they got shredded. So we all had this tobacco laying everywhere, Siebold said, after the celebratory cigars of the winners of the rivalry always smoke in a thick Alabama accent. But between shoes and cigar tubes, we couldn't get over the amount of clothes. Okay, what'd you do? Walk out here in the field naked? It's his embellishment, not mine. Maybe so, but there's ample evidence that many of those glass cigar tubes went home on anyone's person. Dr. John Sirach, a distinguished professor of turfgrass sciences in the Department of Plant Sciences at UT, witnessed the wreckage firsthand. Sirach is the go-to consultant for the NFL Players Association for inspecting field safety at neutral site games like in London. Happens to run at a STEAM Center for Athletic Field Safety there on Knoxville's campus. I went there and literally picked up 7 heaping handfuls of broken glass from cigar tubes and cigar caps. It was crazy. Siebold said his staff all went out on the field inch by inch because players getting cut was their biggest fear. We got 6 backpack blowers and we blew off the entire field by hand. Anytime we found a patch of glass, we'd flag it. Then we'd come back with shop vacs and suck it all up. Besides the glass, there were a few other surprises. Apparently the Vols are so cool they wear their sunglasses at night. We were amazed. I'm telling you, Costa Del Mar, Oakley, Maui Gym, I guarantee they had a lot of profits in Knoxville this week because we found and smashed a whole bunch of lenses and glass frames. Every time you picked up a frame, that's like $200. Sorokin offered up his own surprise. They found a whole bottle, a big handle of Buffalo's Trace bourbon that was empty. Someone somehow got that in the stadium. This is my comment. That does not fucking surprise me at all in Knoxville whatsoever.
No.
Trash is one thing.
Nope.
So they estimate they had about 50,000 people on the field. And, you know, so they talked about what they had to do to get it sodded. They ended up calling in Carolina Green, based out of Charlotte, that specializes in athletic sod. Sometimes we'll resod entire NFL fields in the middle of the season. So they're talking about thick-cut, big-roll sod, and, you know, each piece that comes in there is going to weigh somewhere between 80 and 100 pounds for every square yard that it comes in on. So it's really, really, really heavy, dense stuff. We talked a little bit about the field here. It's latitude 36 Bermuda grass, overseed with perennial ryegrass. You could take it home and grow it anywhere, but it's just Bermuda grass. You could buy it anywhere, is what Sorokin says. But they go in here in a little bit more. They got everything cleaned up. They got it all fertilized. They did some seeding here. They did some sodding. It's amazing what they had to do in a short time period, Ray. They deserve all the credit in the world because, as you know, right, it's always the lawn boy that has to make it look perfect again. After it gets all fucked up, destroyed, whatever happens, right, somebody has to go ahead and put all that work in. And it's not the people that sell the tickets. It's not the people that are, you know, paying the invoices in fiscal. And it's not, you know, Ginny and HR, right? It's the poor bastards down there in the grounds shop that are getting it done. And so I can only imagine the jubilation that Matt felt in watching that. Hopefully he had an opportunity to do it. I wanted to hear him talk about it. And, you know, hey, for him, go Vols. They got a big game coming up this week. I'll stand here and say it right now. I hope they win. Matt, if you're listening, that's right. I'm rooting for the Vols this week, just like I did in Alabama. Only other time in my life I did so, and they won, so I got a pretty good track record already. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right. With that, we're going to close out the show, but for those of us that are watching, right, we're going to go ahead and name the show. If you don't know what that means, if you've heard us say that before, don't know what that's like, so our patrons are afforded the access to watch us tape this show live every single week that we record it. They're here for the pre-show where we kind of get all the articles together and we kind of talk a little bit more freely, right? Permission to speak freely, Ray? Granted, as always,
Yes.
right? But in doing this on the back end here, those folks all get together. Usually there's anywhere from, 20 to 40 folks that get online onto our Discord server, and we trade different show titles back and forth. We award a winner every week. Send them out, something. If they win a few in a row, they'll get a little prize package or something from us. But it's always creative. It's always fun. And we like towing the line of YouTube censorship when it comes to making those. That's probably our favorite part. So with that, thanks to everybody. We hope to see you all soon and on the next one.